Let me start with the question that triggered this project. What actually makes someone qualified? Not in theory, not in a report, in a way that sales will act on. This is a US-based manufacturing company with multiple divisions. Marketing was driving engagement, trade shows were busy, content was being downloaded, leads were being passed, and leadership started asking a simple but uncomfortable question. Are these actually ready for sales? Marketing could show activity, but sales wanted readiness, and no one could clearly explain the logic that connected the two. So this wasn't about turning on a new tool, it was about answering a business question. What does buying intent actually look like in our world, and how do we operationalize it without buying another expensive platform? So here's what was happening. Qualification was tied to a small set of marketing engagement triggers. Someone attended an event, they took a specific action. That person might be treated as ready. Simple to execute, hard to defend. Sales didn't consistently trust what they received, and marketing couldn't clearly prove contribution. Leadership had no structured way to evaluate whether qualification was actually driving pipeline. The issue wasn't data. It was an absence of a shared standard for readiness and no mechanism to measure whether the definition was working. At the beginning, the request sounded straightforward. They wanted a scoring model, a more formal version of what they were already doing. But adding points to engagement doesn't actually fix the underlying issue. If you haven't defined what sales considers worth their time, scoring just automates assumptions. So we treated the request as a starting point, not the solution. And so once we started digging in, something became obvious. The team had strong instincts about what matters. They understood their accounts and their industry, but none of it had been translated into a structured qualification standard. So we reframed the project. This wasn't about scoring engagement. It was about defining buying readiness and operationalizing it in a way that the business could measure and improve. And one insight that changed the design of the model, in their world, intent rarely shows up as one person doing a ton of things. It instead shows up as multiple people from the same company doing a few things. And if your model can't see that pattern, you really miss demand, and that's what was happening. And so we started with our What Matters workbook, with as a structured exercise to capture every single signal that might indicate readiness at both the contact and the account level. And from there, we defined a clear qualification threshold tied to readiness, not just engagement. Then we designed the scoring model around three pillars. One, demographic and firmographic data. Who the contact is, who the company is, and where that person likely sits in the buying process. Since titles are messy, we used AI to interpret title and industry combinations and assign likely buying roles. That allowed us to score influence, not just job title text. Number two, contact signals, the trackable actions that individuals take. Engagement still matters, it just can't stand alone. And number three, account signals. This is the exciting part where the model became differentiated. Instead of evaluating contacts in isolation, we aggregated engagement across the entire account. So when multiple stakeholders from the same company begin interacting, that coordinated behavior signaled intent. We also incorporated growth indicators like expansions, acquisitions, and location growth. In this industry, those signals often precede significant demand. And so using AI automation, we're able to detect those events and factor them in. So yes, there are definitely other platforms that do this natively and often better. They're also expensive. And so instead of buying a new system, we combine the client's existing stack with AI automation to replicate account level intelligence without adding new enterprise technology. And so before activation of the model, we also address data enrichment and cleanup because scoring only works if the underlying fields are reliable. And so testing and governance are already built into the rollout plan with technical validation and scenario reviews with sales and structured evaluation cycles after launch. And because this isn't meant to be static, it's meant to evolve as the business learns what actually converts. So the model is finalized and moving into execution. So long-term performance data is still ahead, but the intended shift is clear. Marketing moves from reporting engagement to defending qualification. Sales receives leads that are grounded in role relevance, account behavior, and meaningful business signals. And leadership gains a structured way to evaluate whether qualification logic is improving pipeline quality over time. Instead of debating lead quality, the organization now has a system to test. Qualification isn't a feature you turn on. It's a business decision you operationalize. If qualified is just a list of marketing triggers, the debate between sales and marketing never ends. But when you define readiness clearly and build scoring around how buying actually happens, that debate starts to disappear because trust stops being subjective, it becomes measurable. And that is everything.